We seek precise solutions for the continued use of legacy systems and, where appropriate, development of required applications. Real ID has grown thanks to the port and maritime industry's safety and security needs. Each of our modules are managed by a simulated artificial intelligence called Soleil, capable of learning scenarios and finding solutions according to the end user's requirements. For questions and comments, please use the chat located in the center of the bottom of your screen. The webinar will begin momentarily. Real ID is a passionate and committed team. Through entertainment technology, we contribute to our clients' social and professional development. We offer a comprehensive service that responds to new challenges and has established our active international presence. We provide our clients with the right balance between their needs and our platform's optimal performance. We seek precise solutions for the continued use of legacy systems and, where appropriate, development of required applications. Real ID has grown thanks to the port and maritime industry's safety and security needs. Each of our modules are managed by a simulated artificial intelligence called Soleil, capable of learning scenarios and finding solutions according to the end user's requirements. For your convenience, please turn your cameras and microphones off during the webinar. The webinar will begin momentarily. Real ID is a passionate and committed team. Through entertainment technology, we contribute to our clients' social and professional development. We offer a comprehensive service that responds to new challenges and has established our active international presence. We provide our clients with the right balance between their needs and our platform's optimal performance. We seek precise solutions for the continued use of legacy systems and, where appropriate, development of required applications. Real ID has grown thanks to the port and maritime industry's safety and security needs. Each of our modules are managed by a simulated artificial intelligence called Soleil, capable of learning scenarios and finding solutions according to the end user's requirements. Hello, and welcome to this webinar, operated and sponsored by Real ID. For your convenience, please turn your cameras and microphones off during the webinar. Real ID is a passionate and committed team. Through entertainment technology, we contribute to our clients' social and professional development. We offer a comprehensive service that responds to new challenges and has established our active international presence. We provide our clients with the right balance between their needs and our platform's optimal performance. We seek precise solutions for the continued use of legacy systems and, where appropriate, development of required applications. Real ID has grown thanks to the port and maritime industry's safety and security needs. Each of our modules are managed by a simulated artificial intelligence called Sole, capable of learning scenarios and finding solutions according to the end user's requirements. For questions and comments, please use the chat located in the center of the bottom of your screen. The webinar will begin momentarily. Real ID is a passionate and committed team. Through entertainment technology, we contribute to our clients' social and professional development. We offer a comprehensive service that responds to new challenges and has established our active international presence. For your convenience, please turn your cameras and microphones off during the webinar. For questions and comments, please use the chat located in the center of the bottom of your screen. We will now start the webinar.
Hello, good morning. I hope everybody can hear me. I would appreciate somebody letting me know if I am.
We can hear you.
Thank you very much, Keith. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, as the case may be. My name is Jorge Duran, and I am the Chief of the Secretariat of the Inter-American Committee on Ports of the Organization of American States. And I bid you welcome and good morning to this webinar, which is part 2 of a port community system implementation. For a little bit of context, we had part 1 about a month ago or a couple of months ago. It was very successful, and it put forth the basics of how to set up a PCS. If you did not get to see that part 1, no problem. Please access, and I'm going to ask Keith to put it on the chat. Access the portal, the SIP portal, which is www.portalcip.org. I'll repeat that, www.portalcip.org. And there you can find, in the event tab under webinars, you will find the recording and the presentations of the last webinar, along with all the webinars that we have done. So in case that you missed it, they're There you will be able to find previous webinars, including the first one for this set. So I'm very, very happy to welcome to today's webinar our partners in this digitalization effort, which is the International Port Community System Association, also known as IPCSA, as well as our most esteemed associate member, Hudson Analytics. And then, of course, we have two representatives of the Port of St. Maarten. I will, when I pass this on to Monica as the moderator, she will then introduce each of our speakers one by one. But I wanted to thank you all for being here, for helping us do our job as we move forward in the discussion of how to digitize port processes. We've now set up sort of that part one, and now we're moving on to cybersecurity, and we're moving on to the governance platform, and then finally we will have a case study with St. Maarten itself being the case study. These are incredibly important elements of any digitalization effort in the port, and I talk about the platform and I talk about cybersecurity. As we know, if we don't have the cyber as an integral part of the design of the technological platform from the very beginning, if at all possible, then later on it becomes just a patchwork of things that really don't stand up to I don't want to say scrutiny, but to attacks in this case. So I am very, very happy to inform you that in today's webinar, we have 40 countries represented, and they have signed up as participants. And I am going to take 30 seconds or less to read you the list of the countries, so you see that this webinar is really worldwide. We have registrations from Antigua and Barbuda, Argentina, Barbados, Belgium, Belize, Bolivia, and Brazil. We have Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, and then we have Denmark, Ecuador, El Salvador, France. We have Grenada, Guatemala, and Guyana. We also have Honduras, Jamaica, Liberia in Africa, the Maldives, Mexico, Morocco, the Netherlands, Nicaragua, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, obviously St. Maarten, Spain, Suriname, Switzerland, Trinidad and Tobago, Turks and Caicos, the United Kingdom, the United States, Venezuela, and the British Virgin Islands. To all of you, I bid you welcome to the webinar. And like I said before, I turn it over to Nico, the Cower from IPCSA. I would like to again thank our speakers. Thank you all for participating and being a part of this training webinars and that the CIP tries to do to put the information out there. We always try to be as sort of succinct as possible, and also to provide the audience with practical applications, with the knowledge transfer, so that they can actually apply some of what we learn. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much. I now turn it over to Nico for some opening words. Nico, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jorge. I will not repeat the 40 countries again, but good morning to all, or just a good day to everybody who is in another time zone. I'm Nico de Kouwer. I'm Secretary General of IPCSA, the International Port Community System Association. And also from my part, and also in name of all our IPCSA members, I would like to welcome all the participants in the webinar, the part 2 of the webinar. And together with you, I'm looking forward to again some interesting topics which will focus on some more details in the implementation or the development or the rollout of a port community system. Yeah, those who were present in our first webinar, already mentioned by Jorge, they captured highlights on what a PCS is, which are the most important parts to consider on governance, the stakeholders. Also, we talked about the regulatory framework. So it was put in the chat. So please, those who weren't there, you can always review that first part. Today, we will go a bit further into some details, into some action points to consider in the strategy of cybersecurity of a PCS. We will also look into the possibility or the opportunity for a collaboration platform, governance collaboration platform for data sharing in a region. And also already mentioned by Jorge, we have next to Barbados in our first webinar, we now have today this second of our Caribbean IPCSA member port of St. Maarten. So I will not take any more of the precious time and of this webinar. So let's dive into the details for today, and everybody listen to our experts and please enjoy the webinar. Thank you.
Indeed, Nico, thank you very much. I am with you. Let's not take any more time from the speakers. And with that, I'm going to turn my camera off and turn the floor over to Monica Blanco, who is our moderator for today. And then she can follow up with introducing the speakers. Again, Kevin, Hans, Max, Rob, and Nico, thank you so much. We will be listening intently to your presentations. In fact, let me advance to the audience, because this is a question that is usually asked in the chat. Will the presentations be available? As long as we have permission from the authors and they remove whatever proprietary or confidential information, they will be put up in the portal, as well as the recording for this webinar. So people will have the chance to forward this link or the link that is in the portal to others. And for that, I extend my thanks to our technological partner who is hosting today's webinar, Real ID, based in Mexico City, and its Director General, Maarten Santillan. As always, thank you very, very much. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I turn it over to Monica so that we can start the workings of this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jorge and Nico, for your warm welcome, and welcome to all of the participants on today's webinar. I'm extremely honored to be moderating this webinar and be sharing screen with distinguished speakers. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Max Bobbies. Mr. Bobbies leads Hudson Cyber, a division of Hudson Analytics, Inc., which delivers security strategy, risk management, advisory, cyber threat intelligence, and training services to the global maritime community. He draws on over 20 years of experience in enterprise risk management, cybersecurity transformation, and integrated cyber physical security systems. He designed and currently leads the delivery of Hudson Cyber's award-winning CyberLogix decision support platforms for the global shipping and port maritime terminal industries. Prior to joining Hudson, Mr. Bobby served in a variety of executive positions at Axial, Civita Strategy Group, By Systems, Stanley, and Cyber. Thank you so much for joining us, Max. It is a pleasure to have you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Monica and Jorge, for the opportunity and that introduction. I very much appreciate it. Good morning to everybody. Thank you for your time. I'm going to start off by introducing everyone to Hudson and what we do at Hudson Analytics. As Monica mentioned, I run our cyber practice, and I had the opportunity to meet Jorge and his team at OAS about, Jorge, it's been about almost 7 years now. So just to kind of set the stage for who we are. So Hudson Analytics is basically a global maritime risk management firm. We specialize in providing maritime security, other risk management solutions to the shipping and port communities around the world. And we started our cyber practice going on almost 10 years ago. What do we do in our practice? What we do is we provide high-level strategy advisory work, working with boards of directors, senior leadership teams on implementing, designing, implementing, and sustaining cybersecurity programs in a cost-efficient manner. We also do a lot of tailored training solutions. We do drills, we do exercises, we build and design and build and implement internal cybersecurity programs. And then we also have a tailored threat intelligence capability, which also informs those activities to provide those insights on the leadership side with real world actions from the threat perspective. We do a lot of work with the insurance markets, especially in the last few years. That's a growing area for us. So organizations that are looking to implement cybersecurity policies, we help them prepare for and sustain those on a going forward basis. We've also had the privilege to work with different organizations, the International Association of Ports and Harbors, World Bank, ENISA in the EU, and in particular, in the context of this conversation, the OAS in developing the maritime cybersecurity for the Western Hemisphere that was published back in May of 2021, almost concurrently to the work we supported the IAPH on. So there's a lot of good overlap in that perspective. I'm going to come back to the OAS document here in just a moment. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to separate the conversation into two parts. The first part is really about the challenges in the market regarding cybersecurity. So one of the things that we find most interesting and most challenging is really getting leadership and management to understand that cyber risk is not just an IT challenge. It's not just something that's limited to the IT department. It actually extends to family members, children. So if I'm a threat actor and you're a senior leader in an organization, I'm going to come at you through your children. I'm going to look at things like trade shows. I'm going to navigate trade shows, engage with technical personnel who are always eager to explain solutions to potential prospects. I'm going to gather insight that way. You have nation states also that are vying for access to your systems. And why? Because in the port sector, you are the nexus of global trade. And so oftentimes what we find the most common threat actors are organized criminal organizations. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit just now. So some of the evolving pressures, right? We see a lot of threat activity that's continuing to increase with the introductions of AI, Internet of Things, applications like ChatGPT. These are being leveraged by threat actors to extend and expand the threat campaigns that they're targeting the maritime supply chain. Increased digitalization also increases your threat, your landscape, your threat landscape. The other thing that's also a challenge is the lack of cybersecurity subject matter expertise addressing this market. Oftentimes, the highly trained individuals in this market are sucked up by the financial institutions in those markets, the defense sector. So this is a sector that tends to be unaddressed. And also there's evolving regulations coming out at the nation state level and the IMO more broadly. But what I'm going to focus on today is really the challenge in the C-suite. The biggest challenges in organizations are oftentimes internal. They're not necessarily on the technical side. They're really on the organizational side. And that's what I want the focus of today's conversation to really be about. So how does this manifest? This manifests in perceptions that are often misperceptions about, well, cybersecurity is too expensive. I don't have enough money to go out and buy multi-million-dollar platforms. There's competition. I have to compete with other ports. And so I don't have the luxury of implementing and investing in expensive solutions, so I'm not going to pay for them. Cyber is pervasive. It's everywhere. It's almost all-encompassing. I'm just going to give up. I'm not even going to really pay attention to it. I'm going to dismiss it or diminish it. It's just too much to think about. It's also difficult to quantify. How do you attach dollars or euros to cyber risk? We're going to talk about that in just a minute. And finally, and again, this is where we come in and work with clients, is really to understand how to change behavior. Changing behavior is probably one of the single greatest challenges organizations face. So first things first, what's vulnerable in port environments? Is it my CCTV system? Is it my RFID systems? Is it my IT systems? Industrial control systems? I will tell you for a fact, every single system that has ones and zeros attached to it, whether it's networked or standalone, is vulnerable to determined cyber threat actors. If you have a vendor coming at you telling you that their system is foolproof or it's fully secure, it can't be compromised, I strongly urge you to go and look at different options and to do a little bit more due diligence, because there's no such thing as a truly secure system. Oftentimes, because ports are the center of trade, as I mentioned, the threat actors are chasing after dollars or euros. They're looking to access your enterprise resource systems. Why? Because the ERP platforms are it's like the brains of your operations. It's where the data comes in, it's where it's processed, and it's where it's shared, and it informs financial transactions. So they're looking at integrating core business functions. And in the context of this discussion regarding port community systems, these tend to generate the potential opportunities for threat actors to exploit what we would consider one-to-many vulnerabilities. So it's very important for ports, terminal operators, customs agencies, any organization that's positioning to either stand up a port community system or to participate in one, to establish governance first internally, and then that can be extended externally. Now, just to sort of reaffirm the point here, IPCSA did a recent study that was released in earlier this year in March, and I would encourage you to look over here on the right side at the donut, and that red section and that green section. These are the port operators and the port authorities in terms of those organizations that are most targeted in the maritime supply chain by threat actors. So you guys are targets, whether you realize it or not, whether you've suffered a breach and recovered from one, or whether you haven't experienced one. Most likely there might be some threat actors in your environments and you may not even be aware of them. So next thing to think about is, well, how do you address this challenge? What are some of the suggestions or strategies that we can come up with to start positioning to organize around managing cyber risk? So the first thing, and this is where I'm going to point you back to the OAS cybersecurity guide that we published with OAS, is to first identify an individual who's responsible in the organization for all things cybersecurity. I would strongly encourage you to not have that individual be your IT director. It should be someone in the C-suite. It should be the CEO, the managing director, and it should have board level visibility. And so now what we want to do is, once that position has been identified, identify the internal stakeholders within your organization who will inform and work with that individual. This may also involve external stakeholders or partner organizations that you may already have relationships with, who might be outsourced service providers providing security or security monitoring, or maybe even consultants that are you pull in on an ad hoc basis. Get them involved. And this is where you start to organize. Once those individuals have been identified, create a steering committee, an internal steering committee first. That steering committee should have representation from all areas of the port operating environment. It should involve finance, security, physical security, information technology, operations, training, human resources, environmental, risk management, and representatives into the C-suite as well. Once that group is organized, perform a baseline cybersecurity capability assessment. This is an assessment that identifies what you currently have and where some of your capability gaps are. Some of those capability gaps may not be technical. They might be involving controls or processes, or maybe even lack of individuals or training or legal concerns around contractual agreements. So it has to extend out to include the entire ecosystem of the organization. That then informs the development of a cybersecurity plan or strategy that you can then take forward. This is the first thing that any organization should do as a precursor to joining into a PCS environment. Once those organizations that have that in place, some of those capabilities can then be extended to the PCS like a working group or steering committee. So I'm not going to read everything on this slide. The main thing is to reaffirm that this is a cross-functional responsibility that involves everyone in the business and all the different management teams. It includes the executive team, whether it's operations or finance or information technology. It involves admin staff. It involves operational staff in the field. Anyone who utilizes mobile devices or RFID-enabled devices, as well as information in the office environment that's feeding into ERP systems that we talked about earlier. So the main thing here about driving change, right? How do you drive change? How do you break down the barriers between internal buyers and sellers? The sellers being those in charge of information security and the buyers being those who are in charge of finance and the money. You have to identify and attach the cybersecurity conversation and distill it down to something that can be measured and discussed in terms of money, right? Identifying that cyber risk to money intersection is really the first step in driving change to the business. And so here's what I want to do. I want to leave you with some thoughts before I wrap up about how to actually accomplish this. First, develop a business case. And all this, by the way, is going to be available. This PowerPoint will be available that you can refer to later on. Identify your most critical assets in the organization. It could be OT systems. It could be terminal operating systems. It could be your ERP systems regarding financial management. Characterize impact on what might happen if those systems are no longer available. Once you're able to identify that impact, you can then engage cross-functionally inside the organization with different stakeholders. Think of it as part of that steering committee, right? And then develop what I would consider your top 5 loss scenarios. What might it cost the organization if your cranes go down? What might it cost the organization if your terminal operating system is no longer functional or available and it's held as a result of a ransomware attack? And then attach financial valuations to those loss scenarios. Once you've established that, you're now then requiring those participants in that working group to talk in the language of money. And then what you do is you sum up those total values in terms of the top 5 scenarios, and then you can start allocating and prioritizing budget. The other thing is to make sure you have a cybersecurity budget that's dedicated for cyber risk management. The loss scenarios inform that process. The loss scenarios also make sure that you have buy-in across multiple stakeholders within the organization. Then you can then test the functionality of those capabilities that are in place. You want to exercise or drill against them. Most of the organizations on this call must adhere to the IPCSA code. So I would encourage you to start thinking about incorporating cyber into your IPCSA code mandated drills and exercises. And then for those of you who have cyber insurance, test that insurance to see how those scenarios might pan out. You might find that you're underinsured in some areas or overinsured in others. Or if you're looking at cyber insurance for the first time, start thinking about this conversation and doing these things, because it will prepare you to have those informed conversations with your brokers and underwriters. Now, where all this has actually come to pass, we've worked very closely with the Barbados Port Inc. Last year and earlier this year. We were actually recognized by OAS with the Maritime Award of the Americas for cybersecurity, and working with BPI stakeholders in implementing these approaches, working with them in upfront as they're getting organized with people, processes, tools, and funding. They did it right. They did it from the beginning before they implemented tools, and then and that way they're able to adequately and appropriately prioritize those investments in cybersecurity, which will be sustainable and right fitted for their operating environment over the long term. That's what's most important, is really getting organized, not starting out with a pen test, but organizing to manage cyber risk in a cross-functional manner over time. That is probably the single most important thing to do. Starts the conversation around financial risk management, and it engages senior leadership. And guess what? It also sets the stage to have proactive conversations with the board of directors who are responsible for overall enterprise risk management of the organization. So Thank you again. I appreciate your time. I look forward to any questions that'll come out of this at the end of the session. The information again will be available after this webinar wraps up, and it'll be available through OAS. Thank you so much. And if anybody needs anything, you know how to get in touch with me. The QR code will take you right to the OAS cyber guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Max, for this excellent presentation and for sharing all of this information that is of interest to the SIP community for them to develop a cybersecurity capabilities. Just a reminder to today's audience, please feel free to leave your questions in the chat as we will be addressing them in the Q&A session later. Now, our next speaker is Hans Rook. Hans is working in the transport and logistics sea trade sector for more than 52 years. He started his career at a shipping agency, having gaining experience in all facets of import and export services. He was appointed to set up the ICT function in the company. He is also one of the gurus of EDI standardization. He joined UN working groups to establish UN CFACT EDIFACT messages for the global sea trade industry. Having been General Manager ICT within the shipping agency, Hans was asked to join the Rotterdam group of experts for the setup of the port community system in the Port of Rotterdam. His knowledge and expertise of community systems, IT, and port logistics built up over a 50-year career. In January 2017, he was appointed as chairman of the International Port Community Systems Association, IPCSA. In February 2023, he handed over the chairmanship and became an ambassador. Welcome, Hans. It is an honor to have you here today again. And please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Monica. I think the presentation is already on the screen, and your introduction, 52 years, that takes a long introduction, isn't it? But okay, back to what we are aiming for today, cybersecurity first. And now it's my turn from IPCSA, and it's the second session this year, the second webinar this year. The first webinar was about why a PCS, and actually it's not a question why a PCS anymore in the world. It is more, when can I have a PCS in my port environment or in my country? And the other session was about how to develop a PCS, which also gave highlights about the change management and the governance. And the next part is today about a so-called governance platform for regional data sharing. And that's IPCSA Network of Trusted Networks. And what could be the benefit, or can be the benefit, for the Caribbean, Central and Latin America ports? Will it shift or will it not shift? Yet to do. Sorry, it costs a lot of time. Well, about IPCSA itself, most of you know already, it's our task to promote the electronic exchange of information and enable seamless and efficient trade logistic processes through a single submission of data. And I think that's the most important key word, key sentence of this slide, the single submission data of connecting transport logistics. Because it looks so easy, seller to buyer, but when you zoom in the seller to buyer process, you end in a network, and this is just a few parties. And when we talk about the parties in the network, we talk about the loading side and discharge side, each about 40 different stakeholders, not to say the number of parties concerned. It will be, well, 200, 400 when a vessel arrives at the port. But then we talk about the PCS in the port itself, and that we did in the how to develop and why a PCS. Today, it is more how can port community systems further enhance the visibility of voyage and cargo. And why? Well, we have got the ones that have PCSs available these days get a number of questions. There are a number of questions on the slide, but I highlighted two. That is, where is the vessel? Where is my cargo? And where's my cargo? Where's the truck? So the visibility of the means of transport, the visibility about the release and where is the cargo? Is it stowed on board? Is it blocked? Can I get it in-house? Is the truck on its way to my warehouse so that I can have the people around to discharge the cargo or to load the cargo on board of the or in the container? Those questions are topics these days. And these days, when you look at this slide, you look at the bottom side on the right side, you see this This slide is already from November 2013. And the main topic on this slide is on the first line, lack of critical supply chain processor visibility, already at that time. And from that time on, we, from IPCSA, we have been thinking about the track and trace. It was in 2014 when we were in Barcelona, sitting together with all our members to look for opportunities how to get this working. So how about the supply chain process visibility today? Well, our members that use the PCS in the daily business, they have the real-time information on site. So container discharges with this very moment is visible in 3-4 seconds afterwards. And the request from the customers about track and trace facilities along the supply chain, they knock on the door. Can we get those information? Today, they have to rely on the data from, let's say, grab from the various websites or dig from the various websites. Loading port, carriers, marine traffic, well, you all know. So they have to look at the variety of websites to get the latest data of the vessel, where it is, the status, in which port or on its way, get notice about the cargo. Is it already on the quay for loading? Is it loaded? Because it's their cargo, it's their money. And they want to know exactly what is happening without having to make all those different phone calls. And in the PCS, almost of this data is available in the loading port and the discharge port. Real-time data, and you saw our mission is to have a single submission of data. So one truth of the data is available on PCSs. And of course, we can adapt about the truth. Is it right or is it wrong, that information? But it's one truth of information, and we hope, and I'm sure, looking to the collaboration between the various parties in the port, that the data is getting more mature, is getting better and better, and you can rely on the status of the information on the website, on the PCSs of the various ports. So, for that reason, because it's available, for that reason, IPCSA has taken the lead in a trusted network of port community systems between our members. Sorry, that's the wrong side, this one. Our challenges is that for many shippers and logistic operators trying to plan their cost-effective and timeless, efficient supply chains, the lack of visibility is a real obstacle these days. For example, there can be a dozen of more different vessel ETAs. I can tell you, when you look for an ETA for vessel X or vessel Y, you look at the carrier side, you look at the port side, you look at the system of port authorities, you will get different ETAs. And which is the right one? Which is the correct one? It depends on the source of the information. And you want to have the best one you can have. And that is really available on the PCS. Because the shipping agents and all the others have to submit that data to the port authority for their navigation nautical processes, and to the customs for the discharge of loading of the vessel when it is arrived. So you can assure that the PCSs do have the best information. The information shippers need is at this moment fragmented. Well, we grab it from all the websites as you saw and source from the various points in the supply chain. Visit the website of relevant port, shipping line and forwarding, and ask, where is my ship? Well, usually all answers are different. Much of the information is based on estimated and prediction or simply out of date. Once a container is on board of the vessel, the shippers have to rely on the shipping line's tracking data. The ship could be diverted or whatever. Actually, when it comes into a port, the haulier plans according to the data he has on the screen and has a visibility on it. And it can be that he goes to the port and he has the wrong date and time. Dwell time charges. If a container has to sit on the quay waiting to be cleared and collected, he wants to have the latest information because he does not want to wait. He wants to ride on his car and do a number of trips in a day. And that is then not possible anymore when he has to wait for all the release of the container. And that's local, of course, but having the data on track and trace possibilities, that should be great. Right. Why did we took this initiative of Network of Trusted Network? Well, these days, the development of APIs is quite simple. Beforehand, and still available, of course, and still in use, is the batch EDI messages. But on top of that, the interoperability between systems using APIs is great these days. Negotiation between shippers, sellers, and other logistic parties that offer visibility on bilateral base is an option. So you can have a handshake with your partner somewhere and use an API that you have discussed together, which to use. But it ends in a variety of contracts and bilateral agreements. Actually, when you see the prehistoric part of a PCS development, why was a PCS developed? Because there was so many bilateral contacts that give only false information or question marks on the heads of the people that they established a PCS. And this is actually the same situation, but now on cross-border and not on port-centric view. When you establish a network as we have today available for the users, it means when you use the standard APIs, it makes the information exchange and exchange between the various people much more flexible and easy, especially, of course, when it comes to updates. When you update the API, it is updated on all the sites where the same API is used. For me, the slogan, alone, you go faster, but together you come further, is key, also in this development of the network of trusted network. Key principles for development were the neutrality. And you know, the PCSs are neutral bodies, all of them. Otherwise, it cannot function in the market. Centrally, enabling the technical node to allow for multiple connections and maintenance. So one update is update for all, like you have on the Google Store or what you have on the Apple Store. When you have an app downloaded, you get at a certain moment that there's an update available and everybody gets an update at the same time. Well, you know, simple and standardized. I underline standardized because that is important. API connection. We use as much as possible. We use only the standards for the UNCFACT and from the IMO and WCO standards for data attributes and setup. Structural local authorization and authentication. So it's still done by each PCS individual. So when I ask to a PCS in, let's say, in Sint Maarten for information or data, that Sint Maarten PCS will say, who are you? Are you allowed to give this question? And then again, what kind of information are you asking for? And it can stop me or not. Well, that's a possibility. So it is secure and it's structured. So data online is fully encrypted and only visible by the parties involved. And I think one of the important things is in the middle of this slide, it is not a data platform. It's a network of trusted networks. The trusted networks are the PCSs all over the world that have the data in their system, source data, not their own data, but data still of the organizers of the transport. So they still are in the lead on and the steering of what will happen to the data. And the platform in between for the handshake, for contractual things, for the API communication, it's a neutral platform and is not storing data. I think that's very important to bear in mind. At this moment, two APIs are developed by ourselves. That's for tracking trace of the vessel voyage and cargo tracking and trace. It's very easy and secure. It's between, well, the parties, as you know, port community systems, single window operators and port authorities are give the possibility, and it increases the reliability of information in time along the supply chain. There are more possible. You see in the last line, pilot into mid-2023 between IPCSA's part, and that period has passed by. But the system is there available, and we are still trying to get it run also by the members already in other parts of the world, in the western part, sorry for you at the eastern part and Middle East and Far East. But it's very difficult because we started the network in the time that COVID started. That means that there was no possibility to communicate from people to people in person, and that took time. People are now recovering from that period, and we still hope that they will get it online as soon as possible. These are the APIs we have today, but it does not mean that it stops with these APIs. It can be, for instance, let's say IPCSA, for instance, do have standards on some APIs as well, that these standards are applicable on our network, that's the network side, to be used as well for exchange of information between the various parties. At this moment, you talk about the cargo and vessel track and trace, but think about when you look at the communication between ports in your area. It can also deal with cruise ships, passengers and crew information. You know, they sleep at night, and the other morning the vessel arrives in the next port. Don't forget about provisions on board, dangerous cargo, waste disposal. All these kind of things should be able to be routed via that network to make your life easy and standardize between the various ports to ease the life of the people in the port as customs, business, but also the port authorities. So it is an opportunity for the Caribbean, I think, and Latin America and Central America to seek for possibilities. At this moment, only for the members. So I hope that the new members will attach to IPCSA as well to make it work. So increase efficiency, we talked about it already, real-time status of the voyage and cargo and crew-specific information if necessary. Data from the latest port is immediately available for the next port. So you need not to wait till the vessel calls for the port or just an hour before it arrives. You can have it in a half a day or even more. It depends on the sailing time of the vessel. So it saves time for all parties because they need not to recopy or to re-entry or whatever data and distribution. They can control. Instead of archiving, it's more being in control. Especially efficiency for vessel voyages that's the cruise, for instance, but also in your area with transshipment from one port of one isle to the other isle, it might be very efficient to use this network. These are our members. Well, you will have the slides if you want to, and I want to end it over here. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Hans, for sharing this very important initiative. For their data sharing and its benefits for the users. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Another reminder to all of our participants, the presentations will be available in the SIP portal. You will find the link in the chat in a moment. Now, I would like to introduce our next speakers, Kevin Gibson and Rob Jordan. Kevin Gibson studied at Florida State University, where he received a Bachelor of Science in Applied Mathematics with a minor in Statistics in 2016. In 2017, he joined Port St. Maarten as a cargo operations analyst. In 2021, he served as a policy advisor to the Minister of Tourism and Economic Affairs. This year, he had the opportunity to return to the port as an executive coordinator for senior management, where his responsibilities include analyzing and reporting on relevant port activities, utilizing data for better insight, decision-making, and creating an actionable intelligence platform. Now, I would like to introduce Rob Jordan. He's the current managing director of IT Partner Group. He started as an IT professional in 1989, first as systems engineer and software architect for AS400 RPG business applications. He became an IT manager in 1986 for 2 container terminals in Rotterdam, migrated to Windows-based application development, and finally founded IT Partner in 1999, outsourcing the IT department to an independent software company. Thank you, Kevin and Rob. We are excited to have you today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Monica, for the introduction, and thank you and Jorge for the opportunity to provide insight in our experience in implementing our port community system. Here we have a screenshot of St. Maarten and 6 cruise ship days. It's a very beautiful picture, and I invite everyone to, if you have a chance, to visit the island and experience all that we have to offer. Next slide. Okay, so our implementation of PCS started in 2016 by our developers, IT Partner. They and our senior management ensured that our port complied with the IMO FAL Convention. And since April 2019, the FAL Convention makes it mandatory for ships and ports to exchange electronic declarations electronically. Port St. Maarten was working towards this. I think we aimed to later Q2, Q3 to have our PCS implemented, but in March 2020, after miscommunication regarding the berthing of a cruise ship, it was agreed upon to have PCS implemented. Now, we all know in March 2020, that's when the pandemic really went worldwide, COVID-19, and there was a lot of miscommunication about ships, about what was on the ship, who was infected, and miscommunication is one of the things that I believe Port Community Systems is able to address that issue. So being able to instantly provide accurate data can prevent, for example, in this case, a vessel docking when health has their alerts on the vessel, but our dockmaster doesn't have the information that the health department here locally wants to maybe have the vessel wait a little bit and to review all documents. It was very important at that time to have a single window platform to address this issue. Now you can create the greatest platform with the best apps and websites, but having the buy-in of the stakeholders and end users is extremely important. One of the things that Rob and his team did that I think was so vital to the buy-in of a Port Community System was a visual to explain how PCS would improve the day-to-day operations of the stakeholders and make their day-to-day operations even easier, especially so it was the stakeholders, the agents, the customs and immigration. You know, before immigration agents really had to go one by one to each government department to explain what was on the vessel, what was going on. But now with the PCS, and I believe with this visual that I'm about to show, it really helped to get the buy-in of the stakeholders, which was vital.
Exciting, isn't it? Something new on the horizon. You never quite know what to expect. But if it's a ship, this can pose problems. Without information, the Coast Guard, for example, doesn't know which ships to prioritize. And Customs is waiting and waiting, unaware that a ship is delayed. Upon arrival, they have to inspect everything. Did they find something suspicious? Then law enforcement has to collect stacks of paperwork. Of course, the ship on the horizon might just as well be a cruise ship, of which we don't know who's on board or who's visiting the island. And the lack of information prevents governments from planning ahead. Hold on, there's something else on the horizon. The Port Community System, a one-cloud system to which you can subscribe, and that contains all available information. Ship specifications, for example. Wow, that information doesn't add up. The system also shows when a ship arrives and which containers require inspection. Information is sent from one party directly to another. Not only here, but here as well. Sir, please step aside. And statistics can be used to support plans for the future. Like this, we all know what's on the horizon. Exciting, isn't it?
Yes, so that visual was basically given during our fact-finding phase of implementation. We did an in-depth research with our partner IT partners, and they helped us to address the need of each one of our stakeholders. So here it shows that the first and most vital part for the Port Community System is the agent, or the vessel captain who submits the necessary information in our system. So it starts with the agent. They send the information into the network, into the platform, which is a very secure platform. And that information is also some information received by the port from our global logistics system. And from that one single window, information is distributed to customs, immigration, maritime affairs, economic affairs. Yeah. And next we have basically an example of the approval process, going from the call registration in our local system. Then there's an automatic sync to GLS. And then the agents upload the relevant documents. And then the health, VSA is Dutch for health department, immigration, and maritime inspection. And then Port Authority then provides approval for the docking of the vessel. Now I'm going to show basically snapshots of our system and show how easy and user-friendly the system is. So here we can see basically a new vessel has been added. This is basically in the beginning stages when we did a demo yacht has been added. And we can see all the vessels when they arrived and when they departed. Everyone gets that information. Now on the agent side, they can basically select which document they're uploading. If it's a cargo manifest, for example, that cargo manifest will not be available for everyone to see. It's a secure network where only those such as customs will be able to see the information on the cargo manifest. And now the agent or the ship captain can see who's pending approval within the system, whether it's the health, whether it's immigration, whether it's Port Authority, who hasn't approved their arrival as yet. And so they can keep up with the status, and relevant parties can be addressed to know what the issue is if their visit has been declined for a reason. So it gives control to the Port Authority and to the relevant government entities onto which vessel is allowed to dock. And this is now on our side, the Port Authority side, or Immigration Maritime. We can grant full access or decline for a specific reason. Yes, and when all stakeholders is approved, the vessel is allowed to dock, and it gives a time and a stamp. Now, the importance of this is that the communication can be done via email or WhatsApp or SMS on the status of your ship, so that everyone is alerted as to when the ship is arrived. You can also specify what kind of notifications you want in our system. So if you don't want system as to whether the location has changed, but only wants to know when the vessel has arrived or departed, you can select to do so. Now, the feedback from all stakeholders has been extremely positive. You know, when implementing a new system, there's always growing pains. Some people are, let's say, old school and prefer how things was done in the past, but we know the need to digitize. That need has been stressed on from a Port Authority standpoint. We're still looking to update today because certain documents, for example, is still being done via PDF, but we know that data, having files that can read data such as an Excel file or ASECUDA files, for example, we still need to be updated in that manner. But for now, we know that Coast Guard is very, very pleased. They're able to see all expected vessels. So when an unexpected vessel is in our waters, they're able to address that much more quickly. Customs is able to look way in advance of all manifests, and they get their information digitally, as opposed to maybe via a hard copy or going through hundreds of emails per day. Immigration is able to vet all crew, and agents have one central location to upload documents instead of that old school way of going department to department or email to email for each government agency. And our Maritime Inspectorate, which ensures that we keep up with international law, is also grateful that the port took lead along with our partners, our developers, IT partner, to be compliant with the IMO FAL Convention. Yes, and it has been 3 years since we went live. I am part of the committee for PCS. So when changes needs to be addressed, I am the point of contact to our developers. And if there's any updates or questions that users or agents may have, they come to me, and then we're able to brainstorm certain solutions. And that is it on my end. Try to be short and sweet to give my partner, Rob Jordan, his time to present. Thank you, everyone. Rob?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes.
I'm even lucky to be here because we had a power outage in the building where I am. But everything is normal again. What I just want to also to address is that the port community system is basically initiated from the port of St. Maarten. But basically, we have established a new company that's called Caribbean Software Solutions, let's say, to operate the PCS. And this was also something that Hans de Roop mentioned, that you need to have, let's say, a neutral organization that is running the port community system or the single window. And let's say IT partner was the developer of the system, and Caribbean Software Solutions basically is managing the system. So for new users or for issues or requests for information and so on, we are doing that on behalf of Port St. Maarten, also making sure that there is a separation between what a user is able to do. So an important thing for the agents, for the cruising cargo agent was, for example, that there is no, let's say, unlimited accessibility to all the information. So even we made sure that Port St. Maarten, as basically hosting the system, that people from Port St. Maarten don't have access to all the information without any limitation. And that was, let's say, enough for the agents to accept working with the system and so on. So maybe there are questions later on that we can answer. I also dropped a link to the animation that Kevin was showing in the chat. As Kevin was mentioning, is that we did a fact-finding phase, having group talks and individual talks with all the stakeholders. And from this fact-finding report, we made this animation because when we showed the animation, everybody was, let's say, immediately accepting the system, and they understood why we were doing this. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. We're available for any questions.
Thank you so much, Kevin and Rob. This was an excellent presentation, for giving us all these insights on how your PCS works. We mentioned earlier that it is really important for our community to listen and to see from your experience. So this is invaluable information for them. Thank you so much. And to all of our wonderful speakers, now I would like to continue with our Q&A session and to invite all of you to join me in the screen again so we can continue with this new section. Excellent. Our first question is for Max. In your experience, what are the most common challenges you face when implementing a cybersecurity program in a port authority?
Thank you, Monica. So, you know, it's interesting. Everybody knows on this call, every port's unique, right? Every port terminal, every port authority is unique. And so that uniqueness extends to the cyber ecosystem that port manages. And the technologies are usually in place. There's always technology refresh. There's always some sort of roadmap with technologies. And, you know, even with the PCS, there's a continuous improvement that goes on in terms of maintaining, patching those types of systems. The biggest challenges that I have found personally when working with clients is actually driving that cross-functional collaboration and that board, that what I would call informed decision-making regarding board level involvement. And, you have private sector organizations, commercial organizations that have a board of directors, but then you have governments that have usually a board of commissioners or some body that oversees the port operating environment. Typically, board members are not in every case, but there is a lot of discomfort among many board level members on the subject of cybersecurity. It's typically something that it's a little bit of a scary topic, and breaking down those barriers in terms of the language and distilling it down to a financial discussion is so crucial for getting everybody on the same page regarding a sustained cyber risk management program. So oftentimes that is addressed through workshop environments, giving people, different stakeholders, a say at the table, giving them the opportunity to ask questions, and also in the process, cross-functionally training each other on aspects of cyber risk that one individual in one area may not realize that there are concerns or capabilities in another area. And so creating that forum is so important for breaking that down. And a lot of it comes back to education, and not just one-off education. It's about continuous improvement process with education. It's about incorporating that education into the day-to-day fabric of the organization. Those quarterly drills and annual exercises I alluded to regarding the IPCSA code, you have PFSOs who have certain responsibilities. You have company security officers, you have risk managers, and you have other individuals inside these environments that really need to get on the same page. And as you start to deploy into a PCS environment, breaking down those barriers to communication internally become even more important, because now your cyber ecosystem has been extended out to the entirety of the PCS environment. It doesn't necessarily diminish the value of the PCS. That's not the intent of what I'm saying. It just means you have to continue to involve and grow and expand your cybersecurity thinking as you deploy these digitalization and cross-functional communication capabilities.
Right. But maybe, Max, I can add to that.
Of course.
85% of all companies and people all over the world has been hacked, or they tried phishing or whatever. 85%. That's a lot, isn't it? So it's really awareness for everybody.
Yes, agreed. Thank you so much, Hans. And now that you're here, you mentioned about the challenges faced that led to create the network of trusted networks. Could you please share about the challenges that presented when building the network or introducing this initiative?
Yes, it's sometimes the chicken and the egg. The network trusted network, I know, and for me, it's a little bit passionate that I say we started that already in 2014 to think about it and to make it work. It's there. The problem we had in COVID time was very difficult, and it's for our members only at this moment. We have, look at the Caribbean at this moment, 2 members, Barbados and St. Maarten. We hope that we can extend that number of members, of course, and then look, apart from the PCSs themselves, look into the network of the PCSs to work together. And I think especially in the area where you're living in over there, with a sailing time of 1 or 2 days between the various ports, I think it's of essence to be able to communicate between the various ports instead of to have a huge setup of setting up data exchange. You have to start somewhere. And we have now 2. It should already be great when we should have those 2 online and can do some testing. But the more we have, then you get, let's say, a number of companies that could work together. We can sit together and develop more than we have now. Track and trace of the vessel, track and trace of the cargo. And it's not that we can send and give information. This is nice. This is okay. This is a topic. No, the topic should come from the PCSs and from their members again of the PCSs. So that's the way to go. I sometimes compare it with the development of a fax machine. Very old term, of course, fax machine these days. But when it was there, the salesman of fax machine came to you and said, "Look at this. You can put a piece of paper in the fax machine, and the other side will receive the fax." And then I say, "Does the other side have a fax machine?" We don't know. Well, then you're stopped again. And that's in a network as well, a trusted network, the same. You need the parties around in the area to be connected to the network of trusted networks. And in this case, 2 members, but we can extend it when we have more members. And we hope that we have more members in the Caribbean and Latin America. And I think it is of a great opportunity for them that apart from the local PCS use, to use this system for, well, what I said, the track and trace of cargo is essential by the parties to know when is my cargo in a certain port and is it blocked or is it clear. But also what I said, dangerous cargo waste disposal. Don't forget that all that reporting has to be done to the next port. And if it's late, the vessel will be delayed before he cannot sail out again. Dangerous cargo must be known beforehand. So if the information can be routed via a network like this, standardized way for each and every party, according to the IMO4 standards, as we know, and also the custom standards, it should be great. I think it's a great opportunity for especially this area in the world to make it work. And I'm available.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Hans. Our next question is for Kevin and Rob. What was the most important phase of the process?
Even you were.
Okay. Yeah, so we touched on it in the presentation. We believe the most important phase in the whole process is the fact-finding phase. It was important to have various discussions with all stakeholders to create that awareness of the necessity of a community system and what that system could benefit for the individual stakeholders. Meetings were organized in different settings as a group of stakeholders, individual stakeholders. The end report would reflect all concerns and goals. So from there, the developers would know their list of concerns for all the stakeholders and develop the system in a way to tackle and to really check off all the goals that these stakeholders needed within the system.
Yeah. And also I think what was very important is that it was already mentioned, every port is different. So basically for example, for the single window, the maritime single window, you need to address the same decorations at every port, but the way that you can do it and the way that you need to collect the information can be totally different. So it's not that you just buy a PCS system and just start an implementation. You need to do a lot of work in advance, and so we started about 2016, and we started only the development in 2019. So it took about 3 years to get all the information aligned, and basically 6 months to build a system. So that's so important.
Thank you to both of you. Our next question is for Max. Can you expand on the challenges around supply chain cybersecurity? And where does the PCS fit into this?
That's actually a great question, because probably some of the greatest cybersecurity threats to organizations these days are actually coming through trusted third parties and in unexpected ways, right? One of the things that we find often in the gaps with companies that we work with is in the realm of commercial arrangements, meaning subcontract agreements, partnership agreements, memorandums of understanding, and lack of any kind of consideration or even a minimus of consideration around cyber risk management regarding third-party exposure. I'll give you an example. If I am a terminal operator, or if I have an operating port, right, and I'm a strategic resource for that country, and I don't have simply defined clauses in vendor agreements for breach notification, my risk now is extended into an environment that I have no visibility in, nor do I have any control over when I'll even be informed of those risks. And so you multiply that exposure or those vulnerabilities across your entire vendor spectrum, and it creates a very wide or a very large area of concern. So when you have a PCS environment, I would encourage everybody on the call or everybody on this webinar that if you have a PCS in place, or if you are planning to implement a PCS, and we had lots of conversations about this regarding my friends in Barbados, is that you want to establish that organization, that steering committee that I mentioned earlier. You know, it can be like a maritime security committee with different port members, port community members, just to give yourselves a forum to exchange information and implement MOUs so you can do so in a confidential manner, and implement the means and establish the expectations in those arrangements to share information. I cannot emphasize it enough. Sharing information is a best practice. A lot of times, port operators, terminal operators, the decision makers don't want to share, and that's a shame, because if there's a threat actor or a nation state or an organized criminal syndicate that is targeting your business or your operations or your country, most likely they are doing the same with your neighbors and your competitors. So there are means and mechanisms in place that have been very effective in Europe, in the United States, North America, Asia, where you have information sharing bodies that can really provide a high value add for minimus level of investment. And so think in terms of your contracts, think in terms of organizational structures to drive that collaboration, drive that visibility, because if you insert simply like a simple clause into a vendor arrangement or a partnership agreement, you need to be notified within X time of a breach that may impact your data. That then pushes liability onto them if they don't adhere to those contractual arrangements. And that has nothing to do with the IT department. That has everything to do with legal and risk management. And again, that's just another point to make regarding, you know, expanding the aperture on managing cyber risk across all the different functions of the business. Hopefully I answered your question, Monica.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much, Max. Our next question is for Kevin and Rob. Who is essential to get on board? Who is most essential, to get on board?
Thank you for this question, Monica. We believe the most essential entity or part of the process, the most essential person to get on board is the agent, as the agent is a primary entry point of all information. The system must be secure, though, enough to guarantee that all commercial information is only available to the specific stakeholders. It must be clear that their effort will lead to better performance of the port and reduce red tape. However, stakeholders such as customs and immigration and border control need to give clear instructions, pointing out to law and regulations that the system is the single window, and that's how it must be used. So all agents, as the primary holder of the information, they know how to use the system efficiently. Their fact-finding and their individual trainings was given priority in starting the PCS, and their getting them on board has definitely been vital. And there was big advocates for us during our initial phases. And if Rob, you want to add anything to that?
No, I totally agree. It was we were really focusing on the agents, that their information, their input is very necessary. And also, it's not that they only have to bring, let's say, all the effort to put the information in the system, and also discuss together with the other stakeholders that they, let's say, they get something in return, as less red tape or less blocking the whole port because someone needs to figure out which container maybe has something on board that is not allowed to enter the country. So if the information is there, if you can pinpoint to, let's say, the specific risky container, then you can allow other operations to move on, which is important.
Thank you so much, Kevin and Rob. And thank you to all of our speakers today. It has been an honor to moderate this webinar on how to implement a port community system part 2. Thank you again to all who joined us today. And Jorge, back to you.
Thank you, Monica, very much. And thank you to all our experts and their presentations today. They have been, as can be attested by the chat, very practical, very useful information. As one said and Back's presentations with a lot of takeaways, which is what I was saying earlier today about the SIP webinars being this type of event where the audience can actually receive and hear knowledge and information that can readily be applied in their own context. As some of you said today, you know, each port is different from the next port in the line, and they all need to consider different priorities and security and options. That said, I think that the cyber presentation that Max said was very practical and very useful. Thank you so much, as well as Hans with the platform and the governance and the difficulties on that. And then, of course, we saw St. Maarten in real time. And like Kevin showed us, even on the phone, on the mobile phone, you have access to the platform, which is, of course, intended to reduce human error, to increase efficiencies, reduce times, and therefore costs. And indeed, also reduce pollution, because, of course, the less time we have the trailers at the port or the ships at the port, the less greenhouse gases that go into the atmosphere, and therefore they also help in that area. It is important that I mention to everyone here that for a successful implementation of a port community system or a maritime single window, which, as we all know, by the OMI, the IMO in English, I'm sorry, the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, as put out last year, the FAL Facilitation Committee, that as of January 1st of 2024, all ports that want to trade globally must, and I emphasize the must, have a maritime single window, which of course is part of a PCS, but it's intended for the arrival and departure of ships and exchange information amongst those actors. It is important that whether you're considering a single window, a maritime single window, or a PCS, and legislation that supports digital processes. This is super important. I've had a couple of, I'll say, like my mother says, we can say the sin, but not the sinner. I've had a couple of ports or terminals enact, system-wide changes and processes, only to find out that the legislation does not support digital signature, for instance, or the protection of data and information from vendors, clients, and users. So my point here is that updates need to be done to the current legislation, port legislation, so that they support these technological processes, which obviously imply a redesign of the process itself. I often tell people it's not about scanning the form and uploading it to the internet. It is about redesigning the process itself to make it more efficient. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Nico for some closing words. And then after Nico, we'll go in the order of Max, Hans, Kevin and Rob, so that you can all, say a final word before I thank you all for your attendance. Indeed, as this has been put here, there's the Maarten Cyber Guide that Max Bobby's just put up there. Thank you so very much. This is conducted by a sister organization of the CIP, which is called the SICTE, which is the Inter-American Committee Against Terrorism. I encourage you to look it up and check it. So thank you very much all. And with that, Nico, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Jorge. Also from my part, would like to thank all the participants in this webinar to take part today and to listen to not only to me and Jorge, but especially to the experts. So you were all quite numerous present in this part too. I saw more than 100 participants, so that's quite a success, I think. Thank you to the speakers, Max, for explaining a technical topic like cybersecurity in a very understandable way to people, and also to emphasize the important aspects around cybersecurity. And you said that it's not only an IT challenge, it's also everything around that. Thank you, Hans, for our details and overview of what the broader neutral governance platform on data sharing can mean for a bigger region like Latin America, Caribbean, and so on. It clearly explains that you have to work together and to collaborate all together to optimize the supply chains and to exchange that data. Thanks to Kevin, thanks to Rob for bringing their case study on PCS implementation of the Port of St. Maarten to give you valuable insights on some of the vital aspects that you mentioned, the buy-in of the stakeholders I heard. So that proves that a PCS is not just an IT project, but like we said in IPCSA, it's not an IT project, but it's a change management project. I think you showed that today. Also, thank you, Jorge, for giving us IPCSA the opportunity for this joint webinar together with CIP to explain to people the aspects of a PCS implementation. So many thanks for that. Last but not least, thanks to Real ID for facilitating this webinar. You guys did a great job. And of course, a special thanks to Monica for moderating, talking us not only today, but through these two parts of the webinar series. So thank you, Monica. For IPCSA, it only rests me to say that after these two webinars, if you would like or you want more support, advice, or assistance in the setup of your PCS or maritime single window, like Jorge said, please reach out to us. We are there. It was said every port ecosystem is unique, so that also means that a PCS or a maritime single window implementation will be unique. That also proves that the PCS is not just a piece of software that you just will buy in a store or on a web shop or whatever. It needs a tailor-made solution, and therefore you need people with the right knowledge, with the right experience, with the right expertise. So IPCSA is there for you. Thank you, everybody, and over to you guys.
Thank you, Nico. I have to echo his words and about the importance of doing your best to try and develop your own platform, to write the code, to develop it to your needs. We recently, with Hudson, actually, worked on the port community system of Barbados, and it has been outstandingly efficient. It was designed and built by them, proprietary software. In fact, and I see Mr. Benoit Bardul here, CEO of DASPA, of the Dominica Airports and Ports Authority. They are now interested in enacting a maritime single window before January 1st, and they have turned to us, and then in turn to Barbados, to receive technical support from them so that they can be compliant with the IMO maritime single window requirement on January 1st. So I understand that not everybody can do it, and that there is a market out there for PCS products. But let me put it to you this way. If you have a suit tailored to you, it'll fit you perfectly. However, if you buy it off the rack, you'll probably have to do some alterations to it, and it'll never be quite the same thing. And with that logic is the same thing with the PCS. Indeed, Hans, please, some words.
Yeah, you touched upon the to buy a PCS on the shelf. We always say, yeah, you can buy a PCS from the shelf, the IT part. But again, to make it tailor-made, afterwards, you'll find out it's much more expensive than start from scratch, right? I will say start with the fundamental things, not with the rooftop. And the fundamental things is change management, is collaboration between the various parties. As one of the sentences in my presentation is, alone you go faster, but together you come further. I think that's very important to bear in mind always when you look for developments, and especially in the environment of PCSs. Don't hurry, but be very keen on what you're going to develop and work together. And working together and collaboration is key for the establishment of good PCSs. And when you have the PCSs ready, you become a member of IPCSA, and we can make it work on the Network of Trusted Network together with you. And I'm looking forward to be there in the Caribbean and Latin America to support, as I did last week already, and I saw the situations over there. So there's a lot of work to do. And yeah, okay. I think we can help to a large extent the area with our expertise, and to support the development and the facilitate trade facilitation in the various ports in Latin America and Caribbean.
Indeed, Hans. Thank you very much for those well said comments. I'll turn it over to Max.
Thank you, Jorge. And thank you, Monica, and the team over at OAS for coordinating this, and Nico and your organization at IPCSA with Hans. I appreciate the opportunity today. Hans just mentioned something that I want to reaffirm in everybody's mind, is that it's about change management. In a previous life, when I got started in risk management, we called it business process reengineering. It's just a fancy name, really talking about change management at the organizational level. Cyber risk management is a balance sheet risk management activity, and it involves managing risk to the entirety of the organization. Don't fall into the trap of putting it onto the shoulders of your IT guy or gal. It's got to be elevated. It's got to be escalated to the balance sheet level. We're here to help. We've been a partner of OAS SIP for a very long time now. And the team over there with Jorge, they're no longer partners. They're actually personal friends at this point. We do work all over the world. We've done work with large organizations and small organizations. We've seen it all. So if there's ways that we can be helpful to your mission, even if you just want to have a conversation, reach out. We're happy to help you in any way we can, or point you to the organizations that might be most valuable to you if it's things that we don't do. One of the things that we take pride in is that we are vendor neutral. We don't advocate for any specific brand or technology. We try and point our clients to the best solutions out there that are specific or best suited to your operating environment. And if you need help communicating these things up the food chain to the senior leadership and the board, we can also help you with that as well. Anyway, again, thank you very much. I look forward to hearing from you and continuing to work with the SIP and the IPCSA going forward.
Thank you very much, Max. Indeed, the relationship with Hudson Analytics has been very productive and fruitful for our member states and for terminals and ports in the region. So thank you, Max, for this years-long relationship that we've had, not only with Max, I should say, but with the whole company of Hudson. And of course, the SIP team is known as the Dream Team, and we're all good friends now. So, St. Maarten, Rob?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for having, let's say, IT partner in combination with Caribbean Super Solutions also participating in this. I know Hans Rook for many years. We have done a lot of work also in Rotterdam. And basically the whole adventure for PCS at Port St. Maarten started, let's say, with showing how in Rotterdam a PCS named Port Base as a central organization is functioning for the Netherlands specifically. And we just projected, let's say, that big PCS system, Port Base in the Netherlands, to the island of St. Maarten. And we picked out what was really interesting and necessary for this island. And yeah, in this way we could make a tailor-made solution for Port St. Maarten. And also don't forget, do it step by step. Start at the bottom, but do it step by step. In our development world, we say do it agile. Don't try to solve all the problems in just one step, but smaller solutions.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Rob. Yes, incremental growth, incremental changes are the way to go here. As Hans said, don't start with a roof. Start with the foundation of your house. In this case, your project, which, as we've heard repeatedly, it'll be change management. And as we all know, both humans and organizations are inherently resistant to change. So it's really changing the way people think and the way people do things. So thank you very much, Rob. Last but not least, Kevin.
Thank you, Jorge, and your team at OAS CIP for the opportunity to present and be along with this this team. It's always a pleasure working with you guys and even being a part of some trainings with you guys, and your help to develop ports throughout the Caribbean, throughout the region is very much helpful. Thank you, Hans and Nico. Being part of the IPCSA has been a great support for Port St. Maarten. You're always there if we ever have any questions or any needs. Max, I think it's been great working with you from my security team and your team at Hudson. It's always been great. And Rob, the relationship we have to everyone and any ports having any issues, port-related issues with their port community system. You can always reach out to me. I believe the folks at OAS have my contact.
Of course.
And it's been great. And thank you once again for the opportunity.
Well, thank you all. Indeed, if you guys want to reach Hudson, IPCSA, or the Port of St. Maarten, just reach out to us and we'll be happy to make that connection and provide you with the necessary information, introductory emails, or whatever it is that you need. Thank you to Monica Blanco for putting this together. As usual, thank you, as Nico said, to our technological partner, Real ID. Thank you, the speakers, for sharing your knowledge and taking the time to support our work. And most of all, thank you, the audience, for staying with us, for showing interest, for your positive comments. As you know, the CIP will continue to organize these webinars. And in fact, I'm going to talk to IPCSA to see if we are able to even do another webinar, because these technological-oriented webinars always have very, very good participation. Perhaps we should focus on October or November on maritime single window exclusively in order to help the processes in the region that are trying to implement the maritime single window. But we'll let you all know. In the meantime, be well. For those of us in the United States, I know it's Thursday, but Monday is Labor Day, so enjoy the long weekend. And thank you, everyone around the world, our associate members, our national port authorities, our strategic partners, and the public in general for your attention and your time. Hasta la próxima. Till the next time, fellows. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.